This is Gareth Southgate, and this is the Three Lions podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Three Lions podcast. My name is Russell Osborne and this is an independent England football supporters podcast. I hope you're well. Hope you've enjoyed some of the recent episodes that have come your way. This one here is one that I've considered for a little while. I think I even suggested it to myself on an episode a while back. Second, a little bit of research, some of it on my behalf, some suggestions from you guys as well. With Wembley generally being a home venue for us, for England, lots of us that go, well, we're quite familiar with it, rather than, say, the Spanish or Italian fans who don't have a home stadium as such, like we do. Of course, we do on occasions go round the country, most recently Newcastle for the Bosnia game, Old Trafford for North Macedonia last year. But on the whole, it's HA9 Wembley. And with it being Wembley, we generally all have familiar places where we can meet, greet, eat and drink together before the game. So the idea of this episode is to take a look around the area, maybe suggest some new places that you might want to explore. Although I do appreciate the superstitious aspect, you might have a lucky pub, somewhere that you don't want to stray from. But maybe for some listeners who maybe haven't been to Wembley before, or maybe you've only been once or twice, maybe you don't want to pay Wembley prices. Hopefully, I can provide you with some alternatives, thanks to some suggestions, as I say, from myself and from listeners. Obviously, times change, pubs, restaurants close or change hands. So this is how it stands in 2024. Ahead of the Iceland game coming up on the 7th of June, I put the message out on social media. Got some great suggestions, many that I'd not heard of. So I had a little bit of exploring to do online and physically. But to start with, myself, where do I go when I go to Wembley? Well, generally I head into Liverpool Street on the train, meet a couple of mates. We will head either into the Hamilton Hall, so Wetherspoon's pub just at the top of the station. It's often pretty busy. It's got a large bar, it's got an upstairs, there's the outside area. You can get some food there as well. Well, just round the corner, still from the station, is the Railway Tavern, or the Lord Aberconway on Broad Street. Do like that one. It's got some little seating alcoves and an upstairs that looks over the bar area. Of course, Liverpool Street is a short walk to Spitalfields Market, so there's plenty of street food stalls in that area. It's ideal, well, it is for me, before getting onto the Metropolitan line. Now, there are two lines that service Wembley Park, which is the main underground station for the stadium.
The next station is Wembley Park. Doors will open on the left-hand side. Change for the Metropolitan line. Exit for Wembley National Stadium.
This is the one with the large steps that take you down to Wembley Way under the Bobby Moore Bridge. Now, there is also Wembley Central on the Bakerloo and the London Overground line, but I have to be honest, I'm not so familiar with that side. The Bakerloo is the brown line, Metropolitan is the dark red, sort of maroon, that heads towards Amersham and Watford Way, and the Jubilee line is the grey one that starts or ends at Stanmore, where many of you park, and I too have done so in the past. It can be a ball ache coming out of there though, well, what I've found. So if you're coming to Wembley from any of those by train, and as I say, you can come from any direction, but as there's only so much I can cover, I'm going to kind of stick to those lines and sort of start from there and work our way towards Wembley. As I say, I put the message out on social media as to what your suggestions are. Nick N88 on Twitter said the Arch is great. There's food available, and it was pretty quiet when he visited, but in a good way. And it's right by Wembley Stadium tube stop. Only a few minutes walk from the ground too. Richard Corley mentioned the Arch on Facebook too, as say, not one that I've heard of. Thomas Francis, a Crawley fan, it does what many of you probably do. Drive with the kids, park in a driveway, McDonald's before the game, spend a fortune in the shop and then into the ground. Yes, I've also done that as well. Matthew, Oxford United fan, says JJ Moons purely for the cost and the Wetherspoons app. Yes, of course, there is the old Wetherspoons app where you can put your table on social media and let someone send you some bowl of peas or a fruit smoothie. Philip White, an Oldham fan, said last few times he's travelled down and ended up at the liquor parlour on the way to the ground from Wembley Central. Again, not one I've heard of. Andy Catanach, Wetherspoons at Wembley. There's the Torch and the Green Man. Yes, I'll come to those soon. Alfie Wilson suggested Bohemia House. 1 minute walk from West Hampstead Tube. Great middle location and super easy to get to Wembley. 15 minutes on the Jubilee. Czech beer, Czech food, and it's in the house where the Czechoslovakian government was in exile in World War II. There you go. I like that. A little bit of history that comes with your drink. And I tell you what, here's another one that I've been to. The Freemasons Tavern. It's got a little bit of football history, as it was there that the FA was formed on the 26th of October, 1863. It's near Holborn Station. I've strayed away from our tube lines there, but it's just off the Central and Piccadilly line. But it is worth a look. There's a couple of little artefacts in there that might be of interest to the regular football fan. Also, just sort of straying off is the Shakespeare in Bethnal Green, as recommended by Mark Griffiths. Chris Brown says Carnaby Street, a few places around there. Now, if you're coming from across the country, if you come into King's Cross, it is a central station in London. Plenty to choose from there. You'll find O'Neill's, a sports bar, which is just a short walk from the station down the Euston Road. Suggested by Mark Pemberton is the Parcel Yard, and you can find that in King's Cross Station.
The next station is King's Cross St Pancras. Change for the Victoria, Northern, Hammersmith and City, Metropolitan and Circle lines and national and international rail services.
So from King's Cross, you can get back onto the Metropolitan line, also the Hammersmith and City and Circle line. And if you get on there, you'll come across the Euston Tap or the Euston Flyer, which is a Fuller's pub at Euston. Euston Tap is an interesting one. It's a little bit TARDIS-like, looks tiny from the outside, and it kind of stands alone just by the entrance to the bus station. A lot of the double-decker red buses will come in there to, I think it might be the end of their line or something like that. But yeah, great little tap bar, and it's got an upstairs as well. Good area outside, often quite busy. But if you keep going along all of those lines, the Met line, Hammersmith and City Circle line, you will also hit Baker Street. Yes, home of Sherlock Holmes. Museum is there as well. It's also the inspiration for the Jerry Rafferty song of the same name. Now here we've got a few options. Either side of the road you have the Globe, usually pretty busy, people using the outside space. That is it's a Green King pub. Got to be honest, it's been quite a while since I've been in the Globe, mainly because it's so busy and I've got there a little bit too late and I can't be doing with battling through the crowds to get to the bar. But opposite that, across the road, this is on the side of the underground entrance or exit, is the Metropolitan. Not to be confused with the Underground line, it is called the Metropolitan. This is a Wetherspoons pub. You can get between the Globe and the Metropolitan via the underpass there. And then, of course, there is one of the most underwhelming tourist attractions in that area, Madame Tussauds. That's just up the road. And also, in this area, the Baker Street area, there is a blue plaque for one of London's most famous detectives.
He's the greatest. He's fantastic. Wherever there is danger, he'll be there. He's the ace. He's amazing.
Find a red pillar box, and rather than looking up, look down.
Danger Mouse.
So from Baker Street, you can get back on the underground. You can either get on the Metropolitan line, go straight to Wembley Park, or you can get on the Brown line, the Bakerloo line, and that will take you to Wembley Central. And a couple of people mentioned JJ Moon's at the Wetherspoons pub. That is just a short walk from Wembley Central, and that's the one on the Bakerloo line. JJ Moon's is a short walk from there. It's on the high road. Not one that I've actually been to, I have to be honest, but a fair few of you appear to go to it before the game. So by now, you may be on your way to Wembley. Now, there are plenty of pubs and eateries around the Wembley area. If you've been there for a cup final, maybe a semi-final as well, then you'll know that the area gets split up as such, with pubs being designated to each set of fans in a east and west of the ground fashion. But when England are playing, these rules don't generally apply. So once you're in the immediate vicinity of the ground, to the right-hand side, as you look at it from Wembley Park Station, you can head to the Wembley Park side of things. This is near the arena. There's lots of places to eat there. You've got your Nando's, TGI's, Wagamama's. What else have got? There's Wenzel's. Any sort of pizzas there. You can get burgers as well, Mexican. And also there are specific dessert places. It's all the regular chains that you'll recognise. There is a website for Wembley Park. It is wembleypark.com. Likewise, for many of the pubs that I've mentioned, the pubs have got websites. So just Google maybe some of the ones that I've mentioned and you should be able to find them, either their own specific website or TripAdvisor, or will often have some suggestions about them. Now, once you get onto Wembley Way, it is an alcohol-free zone. And we have the Euro 2020 final to thank for that. Gone are the days of grabbing a couple of cans from the off licence there and just standing having a chat with your mates, watching the world go by, popping your empties in the bin before making your way. Those days are gone. But there are still places around there. Box Park is on Wembley Way. You may have heard of Box Park. They've got venues in Shoreditch. I know there's one in Shoreditch. I think there's one in Croydon as well. There might be some outside of London. I have to be honest, I don't know. Now, it generally gets busy in there, and running the risk of showing my age, if it's a place where you have to queue for, then it's not for me. But you will see large queues going into Box Park, I say, on Wembley Way. It's on the right-hand side as you make your way towards the stadium. Couple of obvious places that can cater for large amounts of people are the Torch, which is on Bridge Road. It's a short walk away from the ground as you come out of Wembley Park. In fact, don't even go down the steps. You need to turn left as you come out of the station. In fact, there's also the Crock of Gold. It's not so big, but I've been in there before. It's quite good. But the Torch, that's got a fair bit of outside space. And if you want to take a stroll towards the Green Man from the Torch, and I'll come to that in a minute, then you'll come across the Wembley Tavern on Wembley Park Drive. That's similar to the Crock of Gold in the fact that it sits amongst the rows of shops and restaurants. It's next to the Wimpy. Yes, the Wimpy.
Come on over to my place. Hey you, we're having a Wimpy. We'll be shaking, grilling and feeling. Come on over tonight. Yeah. Come on over.
But if you keep on walking, then there is the Green Man Pub and Hotel. That's squeezed between Wembley Hill Road. Yes, it is a hill. And Dagmar Avenue. It's frequented by many on an England match day. It's got a large beer garden, which will generally have the mobile food vans there. On a summer's day outside, it's a good place to be. The Arch is in view. Everyone having a good time. You know, those August, September home games when the sun's out. They also do their own food. And inside has a whole load of Wembley-related photos on the wall. And if you've got any of the club stickers that you've had made up, then you can add them to the toilet walls, at the gents' toilets, that is. I'm not so sure about the women's. But as I mentioned, it is a hotel too. And if hotels are something you're looking for, there are a few around the Wembley area, all the usual suspects, Novotel, Premier Inn, Travelodge, Hilton, that's the Ibis as well. Plenty of B&Bs dotted around too. If you want to spend the night before, say, driving back home. Google is your friend here, obviously, depending on your budget. But once you're on the way to the ground, ticket in hand, right next to the stadium is the White Horse, named so after the 1923 FA Cup final. It's a big one, right on the corner, right near the arena. This one is a Fuller's pub, so if you're like me, you like a little bit of London pride, that's where you'll get some of that. Now, just outside of the ground, on the upper outside concourse, there is a designated food and drink area. Now, I seem to remember this is around gates E and F. Now, it can get quite busy, and it's not a massive area, but it's fairly big, and you'll need to show your ticket to gain access to it. But they have food and drink there too, but it's all outside. So if it's raining, there is no shelter. But if you've cut it fine and your only option is the ground, then expect to pay circa £7-8 for a beer. And I remember for the recent Brazil-Belgium game, they were doing 4 pints of Budweiser for £25.
Why? So what's up, B?
Nothing. Watching game, having a bud. True. What's up? Yo, who that? Yo!
Now, obviously, you can get food inside the ground too. I don't tend to generally, but on the odd occasion, I took my daughter to one of the recent Lionesses games, and obviously I had to get something there. From memory, like one of these grab-sized bag of crisps, just a couple of quid, as is a bag of chocolate. They've got pick and mix there. Now, if you've got no concept of weights and measures, I'd steer well clear of that. If you think you've been stung when you go to the cinema, it's worse here. One thing I will give the ground some credit for is they have a new system of buying drinks and sort of snacks. Now, I only saw this on the lower tier. It might be throughout the stadium. You'd have to explore it next time you go. But you go through an electric type gate and you can only go through it by tapping your bank card. Now, I think it deducts £20, but you can go through to this little area where there's a bar, there's fridges where you can pick up a drink, soft drink and the like, and you can then walk away with it. There's beers already poured, waiting to be picked up. Now, there are cameras everywhere, scanning what you've bought and how much to deduct from your card once you walk away. And that's how the balance is worked out for your purchase. So your 20 quid, that you sort of is deducted to get through these gates. If you buy a beer for a £5, for example, then it will credit you back £15. Now, as I say, I went to one of the recent Lionesses games. It was the one against Sweden. Bought a bottle of water for my daughter. I looked back on my statement, which was £2.99 for a bottle of water. You can keep the lid though. You just pick it up and you walk away. I think it might be called bar tap or something along those lines. It's similar to the Amazon supermarket system that's in place, if you're aware of that. It does certainly cut down on the queuing time, so I will give credit where credit's due. Actually, it's worth pointing out that as a whole, the stadium is a cashless venue, so we'll only accept card or contactless payment. But once the full-time whistle goes, there are still a few options for you if you want to wait for the mass of people to dissipate. What more do you want than a curry? And Wembley, well, it's got its fair share of those dotted around. You have to seek those out. Obviously, there are so many more options around the area, the city too. And obviously, I appreciate some of you may not drink. Some may be more spirits than beers. And clearly, you'll be able to get soft drinks at all of these places that I've mentioned. But for those of you that prefer a tea or coffee, you can't walk 2 minutes in London without coming across somewhere that will serve you that, if that's your preference. Although, never settle for Costa. That's my opinion. There's always somewhere better. Google might be your friend in this instance. But thanks for listening. I hope you found it of interest. Let me know if I've missed any out. Let me know if you check out some of the suggestions. Maybe you can save yourself a few quid. And speaking of which, if you'd like to contribute to the hosting of the show, you can do. Head to ko-fi.com/3 Lions Podcast, ko-fi.com/3 Lions Podcast. Any donation is welcome. And then, of course, you can follow the show on social media. It can be found on the likes of Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. If you want to follow it, great, would be appreciated. Euros is coming up, isn't it? It's approaching us very, very soon. I'll no doubt be putting a preview together for that very soon. I hope you can join me for it. So until the next time, take care of yourselves. Cheers.